Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry. I'm a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher Reacts video. All right, a while ago, I had a video that I covered from Simple History that did really well, and it was called Don't Call the French Cowards. And I wanted to return to Simple History because they have great topical videos. And this one from about a month ago caught my eye because it sounds really interesting. It's called Filthy Habits of History's Worst Dictators. All right, so it sounds like we might get grossed out a little bit. And hopefully, because these are evil dictators, it'll make you less likely to continue their habits. So let's see what they are. All right, the original video is down below. Make sure you're supporting Simple History. Let's check it out. There we go. Like the Fuhrer is going to be in here.
Of evil dictators. Dictators have risen and fallen throughout history, and we all know they're not the most pleasant of people. Best known for the atrocities they commit and the oppression of the people under them. They don't go down in history for the right reasons. But they are human beings just like the rest of us, and like the rest of us, they harbor some secrets. It's just that theirs are of the disgusting, repellent, and flat-out smelly variety. They were bad enough to be around anyway. But these bad habits make these dictators even more repulsive.
I guess we should think if their habits are exceptionally bad for their time period.
Number 5. Hitler's uncontrollable farting. Adolf Hitler is one of the most famous dictators in history, responsible for the death of millions of people, the Holocaust, and of course, sparking World War II. All in all, he wasn't a pleasant person. But what made him even worse to be around was his unbearably smelly posterior. Thanks to a combination of eating an excessive number of vegetables.
I was gonna say he was vegetarian. He was big with animals, right? So, by the way, another famous German that had bad gas, it said, is Martin Luther. So I don't know what's going on in Germany.
And poor advice from a doctor that many referred to as a quack. Adolf Hitler's rear was louder than the brass section of the New York Philharmonic.
I did not hear this
As
before.
Hitler got bolder and meaner, he also suffered from more and more medical issues. In fact, some historians now believe that he actually suffered from Parkinson's disease towards the end of his life. Others argue that most of it.
He was always kind of like holding his hands and arms and stuff, and kind of he'd put them behind his back and not really, you know, at least in like a public setting, or like a casual setting, I guess more you should say. So yeah, it kind of makes sense that he would maybe hide that more if he did have Parkinson's. Yeah.
His symptoms and problems were actually thanks to the excessive over-medication by his personal physician, Dr. Theodor Morell. As the Austrian dictator was a strict vegetarian, his diet reportedly consisted just of fresh vegetables, mashed potatoes, and pasta. Not items conducive to a happy stomach when eaten alone and in excess. As a result, from 1936 onward, Dr. Morell was fully in charge of Hitler's care and in fixing his delicate stomach.
All right, I want to know though, you know, this, I know there's evidence of this. What was his response if people like if they pointed out that he farted? It's like, dude, mein Führer, did you fart? Or like, ew, you farted. Like, was he like, I wonder if he was joking about it, or was he like, send him away, send him to the concentration camps?
Unfortunately,
did he have a lighthearted view of his own farts?
The quack only made things worse, providing him with up to 28 pills per day. One of the worst of which was his use of Dr. Koster's anti-gas pills, which, thanks to its maximum dose of strychnine, actually made Hitler's cramps and farting more common. Not someone you'd want to share a bedchamber with. Poor Eva Braun. Yeah. Number 4.
That's why she ended it. It was the gas.
Mao Zedong's rotten teeth.
Oh no.
Mao Zedong, famously known as Chairman Mao, was, to put it mildly, not a nice man. During his rule of China from 1949 to 1976, Chairman Mao was responsible for up to an unbelievable 80 million deaths.
The famine of as a result of the Great Leap Forward and other policies, and then the Cultural Revolution. Late 50s into the 60s, pretty rough for them trying to make their transition into their desired outcomes, I guess you would say, stemming from the Civil War and their revolution.
From purification schemes to the killing of loyalists while under his communist rule, Mao seemingly had no reservations about torturing and murdering those he saw as a threat. Not someone you'd want to cross paths with, and even if you did, your stomach would immediately turn as soon as you spotted his awful, rotting teeth. That's because Mao strongly believed brushing your teeth wasn't necessary, as long as you rinsed them with tea. He was even quoted by his personal physician as saying, "I clean my teeth with tea. I never brush them. A tiger never brushes his teeth. Why are a tiger's teeth so sharp?"
Because of what they eat. It depends on what you eat with your teeth. Gosh, it's making my, I just ate lunch and now like I feel disgusting right now. But yes, it has to do with what you eat. Okay. There's no harm in brushing your teeth there. So,
needless to say, Mao's philosophy was very, very wrong. As a result of his complete lack of oral hygiene, his teeth looked like they were coated in green paint. A few were loose and pus oozed out of his gums.
Green.
By the 1970s, his physician reported that all of Mao's teeth had blackened and the back had fallen out, and he was suffering from severe periodontal disease, as you can see in untouched photos from the time. All of which served to make him look like a PSA for why you definitely should brush your teeth.
Yeah.
It's also worth mentioning that the apple clearly doesn't fall far from the tree. In 2011, Mao's grandson, Major General Mao Xinyu, was asked to recite a poem of his grandfather's live on air, during which he inexplicably picked his nose. It may be a bad habit shared by many, but most of us can manage to refrain from nose picking.
Hey, sometimes you got a mind for gold up there, all right? Don't you dare equate that with having with being stinky or rotten, all right? I'm standing up for the nose pickers here.
On live national television. Number 3,
Oh,
Stalin's crude drawings.
All right, he had, I mean, he was a drinker, smoker, all that hard stuff. So I was wondering what they were going to do with Stalin to add. Yeah, he had the habit of drawing inappropriate things. Okay, so anyway, I was trying to think of some other thoughts with Mao there, but yeah, you got another thing. I guess I would wonder. I guess it goes along with Hitler too. Is how was he if somebody pointed it out? Like, dude, you really stink. So we got Mao stink.
Rounding off the 3 worst dictators of all time and their disgusting habits, we have Joseph Stalin, responsible for upholding a regime that used mass murder as a form of control, including the genocide of the kulak class of Ukrainian farmers. Stalin had millions of citizens executed by his command. But when he wasn't busy murdering the population,
look up the Holodomor. It's one of the many things that you can cite for hostilities between Ukrainians and Russians, which of course is playing out right in front of our eyes right now with that conflict. So, yes.
In order to bring them in line, Stalin had a rather interesting hobby. And by interesting, we mean akin to that of a teenage boy who was bored in class. As revealed for the first time at a Moscow gallery in 2009, Stalin's favorite pastime was to take male nude sketches by 19th century Russian painters and deface them. When doing so, his childish humor was immediately apparent, as per one sketch that depicted a naked man and a prostrate naked woman. Stalin had scribbled, "Idiot, you've completely forgotten what to do." In others, Stalin seemed to instead channel a latent philosopher, and not a very good one at that. For example, on a sketch of a naked man sitting in a thoughtful position, he scribbled, "One thinking fool is worse than 10 enemies." One unnamed.
He's trying to be like philosophical with it. Is worse than 10 enemies. I mean, he's somebody that knew about enemies. I would think it'd almost be the opposite because of how paranoid he was. You can see that with the Purge, where he kills millions, basically purges them, or at least either kills or sends them to the gulag, with his, again, crazy paranoia, especially from like military leaders and stuff like that, because he was very much about understanding his enemies and purging them. Right. But yeah, it sounds like humor, like, yeah, I think they're saying like young boy humor. It looked like they were making like the stink lines, like the guy was farting in the art.
The handwriting expert confirmed these strange captions were definitely the work of Joseph Stalin, although why one of the most powerful and evil men in the world chose to spend his time scribbling weird captions on old drawings is anyone's guess.
You were forced to laugh at him, huh?
Number 2,
you were forced to laugh at him. He's funny, and they're like, yeah, comrade. He's weird. All right, Idi Amin and his oranges.
Idi Amin
okay,
and
what do we
his
got
oranges.
Here? Brutal.
While Ugandan dictator and megalomaniac Idi Amin demanded he was referred to as His Excellency President for Life Field Marshal Al-Haji Dr. Idi Amin.
By the way, a lot of modern day dictatorships are often not talked about a lot, especially in, you could say like in Africa or in Southeast Asia a lot, kind of gets forgotten in a lot of Western media and stuff because of a reduced global impact from that. But there are plenty that you could still be learning from if you don't know about dictators after, I guess, Joseph Stalin, pretty much. And Idi Amin would be one of those, but there's a lot for you to look into if you're into learning about dictatorships.
VC DSO MC, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and the fishes of the sea, and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular. He was better known by another nickname, the Butcher of Uganda. During his rule, Idi Amin was responsible for the deaths of between 80 to 300,000 Ugandan civilians, ranging from regular citizens to high-ranking officials like the Anglican Archbishop. He also found the time to eat a lot of oranges.
All right, before we get to the oranges, though, some historical context for the rise of, like I was saying, the modern-day dictatorships after World War II in, say, Africa or Southeast Asia. I guess you could throw in Latin America, but the context is going to be a little bit different, specifically with decolonization process after World War II, where, as you may know, up through the world wars, most of the world was colonized by an industrial power. Specifically a European one, especially a European one. But the power vacuums that were left by those imperial nations led to civil unrest and civil problems that were often only stopped with the rise of military dictatorships. And that's where you get a lot of these. And you're wondering, why do these dictatorships rise up? It's within that context of decolonization, when these countries go from being, again, a colony that had been extracted of resources and autonomy for decades, okay, even centuries in some cases, and then trying to transition into some autonomy with basically little to no resources and broken political systems and no infrastructure. So you're more likely to have the dictatorships anywhere in world history when you have those types of conditions.
And by a lot, I mean up to 40 oranges per day.
Okay, that's a lot. I was going to say, oranges are great.
For eating healthily, like Hitler's excessive vegetable-based diet, Idi Amin may have gone a bit too far with his love of oranges, to the point that reportedly, by the end of his life, he referred to himself as a fruitarian, eating fruit almost exclusively. The reason for Idi Amin's love of oranges wasn't based purely on taste, however. He believed oranges to be nature's Viagra, and that by consuming so many, he was increasing his sexual prowess, making him better in the bedroom.
I mean, he must have been committed to it if he's eating, what did they say, 40 a day or something like that? Did he think they work? I don't need to go and look into the evidence of that, but he must have thought so.
No accounts exist to either confirm nor deny this. But his love of oranges was well known. So well known, he earned himself a nickname that sounds a bit nicer and more cutesy than the Butcher of Uganda, oranges, which was Dr. Jaffa, like Jaffa cake. It's also fair to assume that eating up to 40 oranges a day may have resulted in some ill effects. Given their acidity, nutritionists caution from eating them in huge quantities. It can result in stomach issues. Just 4 to 5 per day can cause heartburn, cramping, headaches, nausea, and upset stomach. If that's just 5, imagine what havoc 40 must have wreaked on the dictator system. Still, it's doubtful anyone feels too sorry for him. Number 1, Nyan Win's love of dolphin parts.
Okay, not just dolphins. I mean, like, they're really cool, but oh no. Watch warning? Trigger warning? I don't know.
General Nyan Win was one of the worst things that could have happened to a newly independent Burma, now known as Myanmar. First to
Man,
point
there is a history that's understudied. I mean, when you see country names change and stuff like that, if you go like Myanmar, Burma, look into those histories, because you could often find something cataclysmic almost in a lot of those. And happens today too with um you have in this whole region, Rohingya, who are Muslims that live in places like Myanmar, Burma, where there are a lot of civil issues going on with that, with these religious minorities in there.
Appointed as prime minister, he seized power in a military coup.
Violent,
The
sometimes.
army had complete control of the country and was totally exempt from the law, stealing, sexually assaulting, and killing those who opposed Nyan Win. By the end of his rule, Burma had become one of the poorest countries in the world, and thousands had died in uprisings against Nyan Win's regime. As well as his complete incompetence and brutality in running Burma, Nyan Win also allegedly had a pretty gross habit. According to multiple sources, although only after his death, the dictator bathed in dolphin blood. As a deeply superstitious man who believed in things like juju surrounding the number 9, it's unsurprising that he also believed in myths surrounding the power of dolphin blood. Allegedly,
It's like the other weird, gross things we had heard about have some kind of bad often, but like justification or something, about why you did this. Okay, you don't want to brush your teeth, mostly just because you think it's unnecessary or something. You're like, tea is healthy and that works. Hitler just from farting. I mean, whatever. It's not really a habit. And then oranges, because at least oranges has some nutritional value. It's obviously going to an extreme, but like this stuff, but like, what?
dolphin blood has properties that keep you young, and Nyan Win evidently believed this, as he would repeatedly and creepily washed in the stuff. Just don't ask where or how he got it. I don't think we'd want to know the answer.
It's awful. Leave the dolphins alone. Man, it's so many, there's all these dictators in history too, and people in history that have done these weird things that even invoke self-harm from trying to extend their life. Look at like the first Chinese emperor, Shi Huangdi, who was trying to become immortal and by consuming mercury, like mercury tablets, because they thought that had some kind of mystical property to it, and then ended up rotting his brain out, and he died of mercury poisoning. These stories are so hilariously dumb of trying to cheat death. All right, final thoughts. So one of the things I do in these wrap ups is usually try to get you all to have something you could respond to. And I guess the natural question is, do you have any gross habits? I think I can ask you that. And it doesn't even necessarily, you don't necessarily have to support it, but just things that are probably gross that you do that you should probably get rid of. For me, I don't know. I guess I did defend nose pickers. I should I guess say maybe I shouldn't be as much. Well, you should get through that together. Anyways, so these are interesting stories. Can I bring them? Maybe I'll bring them up. I like to bring up stuff like this, I guess, in my history classes, weird things like that, because it's something that can stick, and then you can remember that, which will lead you to remembering other things about their lives, the actual historically relevant things. So I guess I'll bring up, Hitler's, farting, and then use that as a way to hook the kids. All right. Anyways. Okay. This was very funny. It's not funny, but it kind of is interesting, but, fun to get these side notes, I guess. But thanks to Simple History for making this. Thanks for watching. If you're around here this long, awesome. Hope to see more of you. I've covered a lot of Simple History stuff. I try to cover an array of topics. And of course, you can recommend stuff to me. Best place to do that is actually over on the Discord server. There's a video suggestions channel. That's the best place for me to see stuff. So hope to see you over there. Okay. With that, we'll see you next time.